All right, welcome back to The Devil in Detail, the Grendel Reread podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Ben. Vivat Grendel. Big episode
Vivat Grendel.
29.
Yes.
Woo!
Woo-hoo! We are back
Continuing
with
our
the
coverage of the Shadow.
Grendel versus
Oh my
Shadow,
God.
issue 2.
Yeah.
Man, this is such a good pairing, such a good team up. I'm so excited to get into it with you, Ben, but also our special guest, who will be
goodness.
in very soon, and we'll
Very
reveal
soon.
to you, though there's no need to reveal. It's in the image. It's Brennan Wagner, colorist
Hey,
of Grendel versus Shadow.
that's exciting. So usually you do your week first, but you had a bigger week than I did. So I'll just say I listened to audiobooks, watched a lot of YouTube news, was inking a page of image grand design.
Nice.
It's a page that it continues a scene started by the illustrious Mr. David Browers, and so I am really trying to bring my A game. There's just like a lot of misinformed crosshatching over the anatomy. It's like well, I might as well try this crosshatch thing. And there's a few spots where I'm like, hey, that's what it's supposed to look like, and others where it's like I have made a mess. So
Yeah.
I'm doing that. Tell me about your big week. You had a big week in terms of leveling up as a comics impresario.
Yes, leveled up a little bit. First, I want to show off the newest shirt, my Kamiko Primer
Whoa.
shirt.
Did you make that? Is that
I
custom?
did. It is a custom, just
That
for
is
the
super
cast.
cool.
Thanks, dude.
Is that like an 80s sweatshirt cut kind of?
It is,
kind of
yeah,
deal?
like the and with
Oh,
the
that's
old
crazy.
Kamiko Primer ad.
I was gonna wear mine, but it's not cool enough down here.
Which one? Your Kamiko? Oh, the
No, my Salvador Dali Museum sweatshirt that
oh,
is cut like
nice.
that. So
Where'd
that's
you go to the
exciting.
Dali Museum down in St. Petersburg, Florida?
Well, my
Or the one
Southern
in-
Florida wife's family used to go there all the time. I've never been.
Oh, it's amazing, man.
Who
We
the
live
fuck
right in
is
that town.
Salvador Dali? Yeah, that's right. That's super cool.
It was amazing. We had a like a membership. We would go all the time. You could just pop
nice.
in. It's such amazing stuff there. An amazing cafe, the Gala Cafe.
Uh-huh.
She was his wife. The big thing was I was featured on a page in X-Ray Robot issue 4. It happened through the Kickstarter for Han Allred Space Face movie. I'll put it up on the screen, but I'll show you here anyway. It was just amazing. I mean, this is the one that really is like, dude, that's
Really? I feel like everyone looks more like you than the last. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's insane. It's an honor. I mean, to be drawn by Mike Allred. I mean, mind blowing. I'm really now on the quest to see like if I can acquire this original page. Like, gotta have that page.
Sure.
I was just in a meeting actually trying to get some information and with like a bank and banking people to help me really get my Cosmic Lion Productions off the ground as a LLC. It's now Cosmic Lion Productions LLC is set. I have a business account and all this stuff going. So that's going to be a real thing. Starting in 2021, I am going to be a publisher for real. And so I'm excited to publish works. If anyone has a comic that they're looking to have published, hit me up, Eli at cosmiclionproductions.com.
That's exciting.
I just got this today. The Death Ray doll.
That's the Death Ray. He's the superhero powered by nicotine.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Delicious nicotine. And his gun is much like my fart blaster that I have. We have like the same.
There you go.
Hunter Thompson's road manager, when I managed him, said Hunter would have loved that. So I keep it near me all the time.
That's very nice. Is that Death Ray doll? Is it modeled after like a specific like 50s toy style or something like that?
I think they have. It's like that kind of old, like Playmobil, almost like
like a Kenner Star Wars body.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got that kind of like 50s Japanese wind-up robot kind of.
Oh yeah, thing. Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I always loved the like the V-neck with the yellow.
It's definitely a
such a choice. Yeah.
Oh man, love it, man. I'm not like the hugest Klaus person, but everything I've read of his, I've loved. So I'm just excited to dig down deeper into all of it. So
I'm
Yeah,
there. I'm
that's
there
pretty
with you.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
love Ice Haven.
See, I haven't read that yet.
Oh, that one's so good.
That's the
But
good one.
there's well, I mean, they're all. Don't ask me. They're all good.
They're all good. Yeah.
But like I've tried a few others and I've just been like I find this somewhat impenetrable. And then like, oh, Poussey is my favorite.
Oh, is
But
that how
like,
you say it?
well, that's how he says it's pronounced Poussey.
Poussey.
It's French. But like sometimes Klaus's like the serifs on his lettering is a little challenging for me to read. But that's my problem. He's a master.
Yeah.
If Dan Klaus was here, I'd show him a thing or two about lettering.
About lettering.
Yeah, right.
Nah, his page layouts and coloring and stuff like that is just really like it is inspiring for sure.
And then Jeff Manley drew you into a page of his Teenage Bigfoot strip as well.
That's true. Well, I mean, that was another thing. It's available on his website. $40 will get you the new issue.
Oh.
And then we'll put you in a page for that. And honestly, as far as like promotion for your book, that is amazing. You know, like that plays right into, for me, my like you know, my love of seeing myself. I'm not afraid to say it, you know, like it's great. And you know, I was like, I'll do that. It's a great way to support, you know, someone who's, I think Jeff is an amazing cartoonist, amazingly creative, amazingly prolific. And so I was happy to support and happy to be featured in that. And one day he was like, what's your favorite Ween song? For no reason at all. Like, I'm just wondering. And, you know, so I said Buckingham Green and he put that in there. And so that was good. Yeah, that was awesome. It was a good week, Ben. Yeah.
All right. So I already went. Great. It was a good week. It's going to be a better weekend. We got part 2 of Grendel Shadow. Before we get into the intro, are there any like addendums from last week? Any burning corrections that we have to make before we drop that intro?
It sounds like you've got one.
I mean, you made so many factual errors. I just thought that maybe you'd be boiling in shame.
Oh, well, see, I tried to correct them. There was a couple that I put in some like little subtext on the video, you know.
Yeah, good. They were good. The Schmelling one was very good.
Schmelling, anyway, I messed up bad on that. So bad.
I think that we both read issues 2 and 3 this week. And it just like stands that this is way better a crossover than you will find anywhere this side of Grendel versus Batman. Absolutely. Or Batman Grendel, you know.
Well, I think that they're paired up really well, and I think that their worlds like meld fairly well, man. And the fight that we see right at the top of this issue too, man. Greatness.
What I found was that there was a very interesting tonal thing that was going on where Matt's not like embarrassed or shying away from the fact that like this proto masked Avenger Golden Age character is not like, it's not incredibly complex, and neither is the world of 1932 New York crime when compared to what would come 50 years down the road. And so the way that in the story that Grendel ends up relating to that idea becomes a very interesting commentary on like the legacy of these types of noir characters, whether they're Golden Age or neon noir or new pulp or whatever. I thought that was cool.
And how even some of it stems from like even those the early heroes like Zorro, who did Zorro predate the Shadow, or was it about?
I saw Matt had a post about Zorro today where I didn't read it in detail because I was like waking up, but it almost sounded like Zorro has historical roots. Maybe I should go back and read that before I say it, but it sounded like that was kind of a thing. We were taught, one thing you said also last week was like, well, I think that people that are in like nerd circles, the Shadow is ubiquitous, and I would agree with you on that. And you cited like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon also. We didn't talk about Doc Savage, who's like, I feel like he's kind of like a tier below them. Like if Shadow and Tarzan are like up here, I kind of feel like Doc Savage is like sort of down there. He's also got that like network of helpers.
Yeah.
But it's just like he's the golden, he's Molten Man. He can do whatever he wants.
He didn't transubstantiate's not the word. He didn't like move into like film or TV or anything, did he? Or
There
like
is a
serials?
movie. There is a movie, and there is like comic stuff, but I don't know. Like I don't. My interest in Doc Savage is not particularly high. There's too many things. There's too many things to read. I'm wrapping up The Way of Kings, the Brandon Sanderson fantasy novel that I was audiobooking.
Mhm.
And I found the characters and the plot and the setting are really compelling. The writing is like so accessible that it's kind of like not really that interesting. You know what I mean? Like Stephen King is accessible, but also like he'll, be poetic or crass or like there's like personality in it. This guy, it's just like it's like a record of things that are happening. I can keep going if you want me to. I'd be happy to talk about The Way of Kings.
No, we can. That's another cast, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's get into the theme, and then we'll be back with Brennan Wagner.
Hey now.
Two in the box, ready to go. Any fast, any slow. Yeah. VIVAT, Grendel.
It's like the devil is my best friend. On the roads with the pen to the fork end, or till time end. Like Orion, Jupiter, my kin, bloodline private. We control the whole shit. The wolf won't beef, then we feast off the rip. Behold the devil in detail. Behold the devil in detail.
All right, we're back, and we are bringing in our super special guest, Brennan Wagner. What up, Brennan?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. How's it going?
Hi. Hey.
Hey. What up? How's things?
Things are good. Things are
Nice,
good.
Dude.
Yep.
Good to be on the East Coast. How's it going over there?
Yep. And back home. This is our tiny little apartment, but it's cozy and we love it. And
Nice.
wifey's over here working as well.
Nice. Very nice.
Yep.
We're in it. We're in the recording shit right now. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going.
This is it. This is the show. So thanks for the tour, man.
Great.
Howard, but before we get into all this Grendeling, I want to lob you hopefully a fun softball. You've been doing. It seems like you've been like falling in love with fly fishing recently, and
Yes.
our guess is that like being like an outdoors person has always been a part of your life, maybe.
Yeah, I've always liked hiking and going outside. Just growing up in Oregon in general, because Oregon's gorgeous and it's one of the cheapest and best ways to enjoy some off time.
Is there like I know that when there's like a craft component to fly fishing where
Yes.
you have to tie the stuff. Does that like is there a relation between that for you and like other creative pursuits or like the meditation of just like being there? And
I think all of it is that I like to use my hands. I'm handsy and I like to keep my hands busy. So when my hands are sitting still that I kind of feel bored, even when I'm watching TV and stuff, I like to keep my hands moving. So yeah, I'm often tying flies while I'm watching the tube.
I have the fidget toy at all times in my hand. I'm just clicking away. I'm the same way. I gotta
have your hands moving. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. We covered the first issue of this series in our last episode. And like that.
Yeah, so I have the PDFs here. So it's 2 and 3. Eh?
Yeah, man.
Correct.
And I think that like the idea that I keep repeating is like this crossover and along with the Batman one, they're really not like your standard comics crossovers for a number of reasons. And I think like I wanted to ask you about just like the Shadow in general and like Golden Age characters in Pulp Fiction and sort of how it fit into your kind of like unique comics nerd type upbringing and in the pantheon of all that stuff.
So I wasn't necessarily as raised on that pulp stuff as like someone of my dad's generation, or even of a generation before his, because this stuff is even this isn't technically his generation's pulp material. He was actually getting this stuff as sort of like hand-me-downs from people that he knew and stuff at the time, and those stories were recycled and republished a lot of the time back then, and he had so little access out in rural Virginia and PA and where he grew up, so that's why he clung to that stuff. I grew up in an overly saturated environment, so I got bits and pieces of that world, of that pulp material. I always loved the all the pulp movies from that stuff that were like in the 90s, like the Zorro film. I love the Phantom movie. I think it's awesome.
With Billy Zane as the Phantom.
What? Sorry? With
Billy Zane as the Phantom.
Yes. Yeah. It's great.
There was a cartoon too. You remember that? The Phantom 2040. Yeah. That was.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And I remember when it came out in theaters, I went to the theater and they were giving out like the Phantom rings. And I got a ring at the theater, and I love that thing. I just thought it was such a cool experience to go to the theater. And they did that more back in the day, getting little trinkets and stuff when you went to the theater.
Yeah, man. The way that I met you, and this is funny because it's like the way that I met Joe Matt and Matt Wagner and uncles, like all these people that are in your life was in Mage. So like as Hugo, isn't like Hugo like really into like Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that?
So I was like every child born and raised in the 90s. I went through a phase of collecting Pokemon cards and playing all those video games and such. So I was raised on a lot of anime. I don't necessarily indulge in that much anime anymore, but I was raised on a ton of it, and it definitely helped influence the way that I acknowledge and appreciate like efficient storytelling. A lot of anime stuff is really efficient in the way that it uses color and certain simplified techniques and styles to get across a lot of storytelling really quickly. And so I definitely incorporate a lot of that into my work. Yeah.
I think that's all. It's so cool how you were brought into the story in Mage like that. And, for me as a guy who also loves my dad, I ended up getting a page of Mage, a Mage page. And,
Mage page.
Yeah. It's the one that is like based off a photo of you and Matt, like you're in the park, you're like hanging over this thing.
Yep.
And there's like an eagle and shit. Like, I just thought it was so meaningful because that was like a real photo of y'all. And it reinforces the like father-son love.
That's awesome.
I feel, and I'm sure, it's like such a cool piece.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Coloring that scene was really sentimental for me. Honestly, the whole book was, but that scene in particular.
Yeah. How has it been for you developing the sequel that you're going to write and draw later featuring?
Yeah. I got to live it first.
Word. Exactly. I
lived it. That's cool. Typically the way, if you've indulged us by watching any of our shows, this is super like inside baseball in terms of like literary and comics formal analysis. And we're super pumped to do that with you, but we definitely don't want to like bore you with like dialogue reading and yada yada yada. So I think one thing that we're super excited about is to kind of build our own vocabulary in terms of coloring and craft and just like the way that you think about modeling and atmosphere and mood and rim light and things that Eli and I really don't have the vocabulary for. So prepare to be.
It sounds like you do.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, prepare to be flattered until we try to just get all your secrets out of you. That's what I'm trying to
say. Word. Yeah. I'll try and spill as much as I can,
Cool.
And for more, all of the fans of Cosmic Line Radio can refer to our 5 years ago when I first met Brennan and he was featured in Cosmic Line Radio. You can check that out if you'd like.
There you go. Cool, dude. Should we get into issue 2? Just dive on in.
Let's do it. Yeah, man. I got it open here. Yep.
I'm going for iPad this time too.
Yeah,
since floppies are so crisp with those perfect bounds.
One thing that we noted was that the like kind of cliffhanger ending of the first issue is very similar to the end of the first Batman Grendel story, where they big splash where they meet for the first time after a little bit of Batmaning, a little bit of Grendeling. Cool, man.
Grendeling.
And that's sort of my dad's one of his characteristics, certainly when he's storytelling, is the reserved hand. So if you have a story that's all about two characters meeting, they're not going to meet until the end of the first act. If it's all about them having the big battle, that's really not going to happen until the end. In this one, it happens kind of early on, but these are sort of the little like fleeting battles until the big one at the end,
Yeah, for sure.
I love that reserved hand. That's sort of like a phrase that Eli and I have been searching for this whole time. Because when we've been talking about Hunter Rose, a lot of it is about the mystery of the character and the things that are left unsaid, and the projects that like there's that like the Jettison novel project where kind of like all the cards are on the table. It's like almost like we get to, as a readers, we get to have more of an interactive experience by not having all that info.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And I'm certainly a fan of that style as well, that reserved hand style, where, if you're going to have a large event or something, you want to wait, and like a monster reveal, you want to wait. And often the scariest movies are the ones that wait and just they play up on your imagination too, because your imagination can go places that perhaps the book isn't even going to go, and then by the time they reveal it, it has more gravitas.
Yeah,
for sure, man.
And you just ramp it up in your brain so much, and you keep building and keep building and keep building until it like really hits, and then that's when they give you that little piece. So we open up here where it's just guns ablazing with the shadow, like drop your weapon, it's like we are thrown into it immediately in issue 2 right here. And they both kind of have this way of poetically speaking, that they think is going to strike fear into the hearts of men or whatever. It's gonna like, and so they're kind of like, it's like tête-à-tête, like, oh, you've got Shakespeare, so do I. And,
yeah.
So
and that's
like,
similar to the Batman Grendel one too. You get these two powerhouses of they're literate.
Yeah.
They're classy.
Yeah.
And in many ways, Grendel and Shadow are both Grendel and the Shadow are sort of the anti Batman or the anti-hero. But then when you have them paired up, it's more obvious who is the real anti-hero, who's the real villain between the two.
Exactly. And Grendel's even like referring to the Shadow, as like Senor Sombra, like, using his multicultural language to, just like how Zorro, I guess, means the fox. I was seeing in Matt's post. So it's like, he's like, I got all this, and we continue on the next page. And I mean, this book really opens up on a battle, they're like in the thick of it. And Grendel's, like chucking his fork, he's forking him, immediately. And Shadow shoots it out of the sky, which is like, never has that happened to Grendel before. And it takes him by, he pangs it right off there.
Brennan, this first page of him throwing the fork is really great, because like the way that you get this like plum color over the black prismacolor on his right side.
On his underside, yeah, the sort of reflected light of the, like, that's sort of the light that would be bouncing off the street and from the atmospheric haze of that sort of reddish background there.
Yeah, man, we spend a lot of time talking about the interplay of the solid black ink and the way the Prismacolor kind of like fades light, I guess, like between like hard shadows, cast shadows, and faded shadows. Like you can see on the mask, it fades, and then the like screen printed part kind of interrupts it. And then just like all the underside is just all kind of shaded in. It's such a, like, I don't know, I think a lot about like the way Eric Powell would use similar mixed media to
Oh
get
yeah,
the
yeah. He's
same
doing
kind
a
of
ton
thing.
of that these days. His mixed media game is really on point.
For sure.
And I've worked with him as well, actually.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
I'm
any
totally
new
trying that.
Albatross stuff coming out?
No.
No.
I'm just I do have a bunch of projects in the works though, and I don't know if you guys at the end want me to talk about that or
Yes.
talk whatever I can talk about
sure.
or whatever. But we can round back to that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so let's move on. We've got this 8-page sequence here. I love this like Steve Ditko Spider-Man thing where you use like the color holds to kind of gray out the backflips.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
The third
And
page.
the other thing about doing that is it makes it just really easy on rendering. I know that I don't have to over render these things. On this whole book, I was trying to figure out how to not over render my dad's stuff. Often his stuff lends itself pretty well to the style that we see in a lot of animation TV from the 90s, stuff that I was raised on, where you have your backgrounds are painterly. In a way, they have sort of a watercoloriness to them. They're not quite as hard cut on the contrast. And then your foreground objects or your figures, you give them more of the hard cuts, the rim lighting, or just the hard cut shadows to help sculpt a figure. And with my father's work, I try and keep it pretty minimal. So it's often, just the 1, 2, or 3 colors on a figure, sculpting them.
Yeah, the painterly backgrounds are definitely, whether or not there's a background that's been drawn in this book, especially, you do a lot of like rectangular like frames to kind of like
in the painting kind of stuff.
Yeah, where like they'll kind of be, you'll do like orange and then it'll get lighter towards the center.
Yeah. To
kind of pop them out.
To like a painterly sort of squarish in the background.
Yeah.
I used to do those a lot more. And it's because I really like who's this big square guay?
Rothko.
Thank you. Yeah. I love the big square guy. And so I'm always like, I'm always thinking like, what looks good in the background? Like big painted squares that are kind of like oblong and like have sort of like textured edges,
Where was this as far as like your like books? Like, was this one of the first things that you worked with your dad on, or Margot
Lane? I
same
think.
time.
It seems like a while ago now because like I said, there's nothing on my computer or the hard drives that I have here in the New York apartment. From those days of Dynamite. But Dynamite was my first like gigs. My first good gigs were with Dynamite, and this was one of the earlier ones. Yeah,
at least 5 years ago, because I think this was right around the time that we had spoke the first time.
Okay, yeah, and I've been doing this now for about 8-9 years. So
nice. Okay, word.
Yeah,
what was the first book you worked on? Just to throw it out.
The first like book, the first one that because I did like these little things, like small numbers of pages sort of stories, but the first book was just before the Shadow Year 1 was a Sherlock Holmes book for Dynamite, and I'm embarrassed to say that I can't remember what it's even called. It's Sherlock Holmes and there's hounds.
That's all good. It'll be right in here. The cover will be on that thing. And
Moriarty's Hounds.
And I can't remember the title, but I did like work on it. It was sort of a trial run to do the Shadow Year 1 because the Shadow Year 1 was a big opportunity, responsibility, and my dad and I wasn't sure if I'd even be able to handle something like that. I think I was like 21 or 22 at the time, and yeah, it's a little daunting at the time to take that on. So the Sherlock Holmes thing, which was 5 issues long, that was a trial run to the Shadow.
Liverpool Demon.
What
was it called? The Liverpool Demon.
Yes, it was. Eli, nice. There you go. Just Googling, I'm sure it would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So this conflict continues. It's like an 8-page, 9-page, 10-page fight sequence. And when he pulls out the gas pellet or whatever, that Grendel's like, wow, this guy's really ahead of his time. This is a surprise. I love it.
Fool, my deadliest arsenal lies deep.
Yeah.
In
What I loved was this basket weave pattern in the negative space, and
in the smoke on page what is that page?
There's no page
9,
numbers
10.
on these. Yeah. 62 maybe.
And like there's no holding line on the smoke, and it's just like there's just a ton of depth. Looks tremendous.
Yeah, the reason I didn't do the holding line on the smoke is because it's supposed to be really dark, and the second you do holding lines on stuff, they lose their darkness. So I figured might as well just make the smoke look really dark and green and weird and, kind of murky.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was just gonna say there's a number of places in this book where it looks like choices are being made like that to pop out depth or to augment the atmosphere in the right way.
Yeah.
And sometimes just to save on time, because knocking out lines takes more time, quite simply. Sometimes it's good to knock out lines because it can save you time in rendering so that you don't over render stuff. These days, I'm often knocking out the background line art early on in the stage, just so that when I'm going to render the background and even some of the midground stuff, I'm not over rendering that. I'm not over sculpting it. I'm letting it kind of just fade back by dropping out that line art immediately. And if you guys want later, I can show you, perhaps maybe when we're done recording, because I don't think my dad wants me to show this yet, but I can show some of the current Grendel stuff that I'm doing, where I'm doing a lot of that.
Oh, sweet.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
That'd be
Cool. When they're like kind of locked hands on the spear here, you can feel Hunter getting like horny for the conflict, you know what I mean? Like that he's like really, he's just like, oh man, this is great,
Yeah, he says it again, like, he's always looking for that worthy adversary, and he thinks like he even says something like he's only once ever found it before or something like that, I guess meaning Batman.
It's the reference to Batman. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and it's he just wants a challenge.
Yeah.
That's
horny for the conflict is a good way to put it, Ben.
Well, he's this like libertine young guy who like wears, or the mask that he wears in public, his like Bruce Wayne persona is just like, we were talking, Brennan, about like where Hunter's public politics lie, and we get a better insight than anywhere else, I think, in this book, because he has like the soup kitchen fundraiser and all that, but he's also talking about how socialists end up going to the far right, but the true persona, like the Grendel identity, is just like this heartless, cold, selfish.
Yeah, I mean, he's a capitalist. I mean, you can tell he's got to be a capitalist. He's obsessed with the competition in life and the conflict, and so of course his politics would be governed by that philosophy that all of life is this sort of competition.
I think that's partly too from like his fencing too, where it's always like the next like strategic move, the next way to get in and pierce.
I love this one where the shadow cracks him in the face with his thing, and how it's like the choice of white reminded me of like, instead of like drawing spots or stars around his head to kind of knock him out a little bit.
Yeah, it's
that choice, and I think I do that occasionally in this book, and I've done it here and there before. It's a quick go-to for me when I can't think of what to do, but I want it to really just stand out and pop. And it's also a time saver. I'm going to keep talking about this as we go along, because really coloring comics has to be like you have to figure out how to do stuff quickly. You can't linger and render stuff forever, or you're not going to get any pages done. So yeah, with something like that, it's really simple. I'm just going to color something with just the two tones when I do something like that, and it's really gonna pop and make that moment stand out.
The scripting on this spread is a lot of fun, where I doubt crack the shadow knows, and then it's kind of mirrored in the last two tiers where he's like under that hypnosis and he comes out of it.
I love how much the shadow like goes back to his like slogan, his like who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men and stuff. Like
he's corny.
Yeah.
He's corny. That's what he is. He's corny. He's got to get his tagline in. That's the thing,
It's and we talked a little bit about that in our intro, how Matt is like writing Lamont and his world without kind of the need to fluff it up or modernize it or kind of do like an Ultimate Spider-Man switcheroo.
Yeah.
That it can just be what it was, and then the 80s neon noir can kind of reflect off of that as we kind of see this like masked adventurer like lineage kind of play out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so cool on this next page, the ring, like the shadow's ever-present ring, Grendel's reflection in it, the eyes, and then he's like, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and he's like doesn't work, bro. These he's like, I'm afraid not, and he just jabs him right in the nose. And this is where my
it's cheeky. I love that about this dialogue. The whole time it's like you were saying about Hunter. He's cheeky, corny. They're both corny, but Hunter's really cheeky. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. He thinks he's wittier than even the shadow here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love that little bit of dialogue. It's hilarious.
And I think Lamont is supposed to be like 10, 15, 20 years older than Hunter.
Think so. Yeah.
I think like World War I service is referenced at some point.
Yep.
And we spend a lot of time talking about Hunter's age, and I think, he can't be more than 24 at the time of his death, and
yeah,
like what a unique person. It's like one of those people that's packed so much into their early life. When you hear them talk about it, it almost borders on the pathological. It's like I kind of a hard time believing you, but if you I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and that's certainly what's crazy about Hunter is that in such a short time, so many stories they managed to explore with him, and that's because he was so popular. So they just kept revisiting him, and Dark Horse and fans kept asking for more Hunter stories. But it's like he only lived is the span of Grendel's story there is only 4 or 5 years long. So
yeah.
We did.
But I always come back to think about, like the Doors or like the Beatles or something. Their run was only about 5 years, and like look how much they did.
Yeah, well, the Beatles, 7 years, all their music in 7 years, which is insane.
Yeah. Well, going from, this is off topic, but going from the like mop tops to like these, LSD hippies, it's like such a change in 5 years, and that lends more believability to the growth from little Eddie to the king of the Eastern Seaboard,
the man who speaks at least 6 languages in this book. When he drops the German, that might be his 5th in this sequence. And then we've got this beautiful like right-handed stack of the nerve cluster fingertips.
Yeah.
Those are like right in his groin. Like what? Where's he tapping?
It's like I would think it's like right here or something. Right?
Okay.
I like too. He's like down on the ground, yet he's still got one hand on the fork. Mm-hmm. Like he's like, I will not relent.
Yeah, I really like what is it on the facing page? I really like the panel of him like grabbing the fork and then kind of like whipping it around into this cool ass pose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, very efficient stuff on this page. Like the underlapping of the big panel, like the fork cutting through the first one. Yeah. And then is that first one, in filmmaking terms, would you call that a dirty POV? I'm not totally sure what people mean when they say that.
The first panel on the right page. Yeah,
you can see the hands, but the camera is not Grendel's eyes.
It's almost. But sometimes they call that an over the shoulder, but it's not quite because there's no shoulder.
Right.
Over the hands, I guess.
Over the hands. Yeah.
Right. And we rarely see like the Lamont of it all, displayed. So his scarf's down, his hat's gone, and like sometimes like he like I know in the movie at least his face changes from Alec Baldwin to Billy Baldwin.
What? Yeah. Is that a thing?
No, he gets a bigger nose and they change his eyes, and to me he looks exactly like his brother.
His face.
So I'm wondering. Yeah. He gets a
It's
big.
not actually Billy Baldwin, but
He
they
looks exactly like him.
Is it
he's right. They just changed the face.
Yeah.
with a prosthetic?
Yeah.
I gotta say this.
And it
movie
makes him
again.
look like another. Like
They
one
do
of
like
those-
CG during the transformation because
Right.
like you see it at I think one or several points. The
It's
movie's
got
not
some
bad. The
early
movie,
CG. Yeah, I actually rewatched it this week.
yeah, the movie is definitely not bad. It's got some stuff that doesn't work so well. Like the floating knife is ridiculous, and but it's still fun. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's
like the
fun,
Phantom
and there's a
movie.
lot of people. I mean, there's tons of people in that movie. Like Ian
Yes, it's-
McKellen and
Yeah,
that
star-studded.
one-
Yeah.
yeah. What's
They were
the
pumped to
guy?
do it.
The guy from like Big Trouble in Little China and Wayne's World 2
Yep.
and stuff. He's in it. James Hong.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff in that movie, and it does actually hold up pretty well in terms of like aesthetics. There's certain shots that like are still people are still referencing them today when they're looking up reference stuff for drawing shadow shit. I still do, like when I'm looking up reference for material on Google. There's still so many great stills from that movie that hold up so well.
Yeah. I think he looks great too. Like when he does the like.
Yeah, he does.
twisted
Yeah,
and
he really
twisted
does.
nose, yeah. And yeah, so we see kind of like Lamont revealed here. And what I was thinking is like, if this were that, like, would his face have reverted to Lamont or would he have like his shadow face still?
My dad doesn't really draw him that way. Eh? My dad doesn't really do the like
He doesn't
different.
do the
face.
change, yeah.
No.
It's easier to believe in comics than it would be.
No, and I think my dad has perhaps even talked about it on this show before, but he's definitely chatted with me about it many times. Is that back in the day, this is why heroes like this work so well in their time period and not as well today. Is there was a certain anonymity back then because everybody wanted to look the same. There was like fucking 5 haircuts for men. There was like 4 different sports coats you could wear or whatever, and so everyone's wearing the same hats, the same dusters. And everyone kind of looks the same. So when the Shadow dons his shit, as ridiculous as it looks now, back then he was just an average guy in that gear. So so that's why I feel he doesn't feel the need to. I know with Zorro he puts the mustache on his Diego. So and this is the opposite of the old serial, I believe, where he would actually put the mustache on when he was Zorro, and then when he was the foppish Don de la Vega, he would take it off. But in the movie, in my dad's comic book version, it's the opposite. So he dons the mustache, the fancy little mustache, to be the foppish playboy, and then takes it off when he's just being Zorro or being himself.
That's good. That's better than
This,
glasses, I feel like.
Disarming the fork is a real turning point with Hunter.
Yeah.
It's like something that it's a real like symbolic loss, but it gets him even hornier. I was like, oh man, where's my fork? All my unspeakable gizmos. How am I
That's
gonna
what
get
I
up
was
the
thinking too.
rooftop?
Yeah. Because we've seen a few different things coming out of that fork. And like, I like to imagine that there's computer in there. There's like geolocation shit in there. There's, like,
It's a high
walkie-talkie.
bit of technological pole gear. Yeah.
Exactly. There's like
Right.
a tricorder Star Trek style to give him like sensor readings around him.
As I'm rereading this script too, it's hilarious, Ben, to keep in mind what you're saying, because he does just sound so horny for all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's
This lone
and that's
vigilante tested me, disarmed me, unthinkable. Like,
right, absolutely. And then we can't forget his technological tinkering with pheromone sprays. We spend we spend a lot of time talking about that, and also about Argent's sense of smell, which is always like every story it's referenced.
Yeah. His sense of smell and his smell.
That's kind of
And
one
the
of
way,
his
and the way he
superpowers.
smells.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of his superpowers, is like a werewolf, essentially, is that he has
Yeah.
like an incredible sense of smell.
Yeah.
So.
But the reference of like the pheromone spray at the
Yeah.
when he falls. So we spent the last few months being like, it's ambiguous, like a reserved hand. It's ambiguous who has what information until we're at that rooftop and he pulls the mask off, and Argent's like, "Oh shit, I had no idea. I could never smell you."
Yeah.
Right.
Because he was always masking his smell as Hunter.
Because he's devious.
So deep.
Yeah, man. This sequence ends with I just love these alleyways that you do, and like how the reflected puddles kind of have their own like
the sky
color
reflected.
profile and all that.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Those are also kind of my favorite thing to do in this book, especially. Shots like that. I really love establishing shots, and this isn't an establishing shot because we've already been here, but yeah, the idea is to show the location with a panel like that. You know, you show the car all riddled with the holes or cracks, and you show the alleyway, so we get a sense of perspective. We know where we are one final time as he leaves that scene
with the fork, and it's like the shadow silhouette with Grendel's fork, so it's
that's fun. Yeah.
We talked a lot with the next scene. We talked a lot last week about your New York City skylines and just the limited palette choices that you're making when you kind of light up or turn off the lights.
This one here is straight out of Dave Stewart. This is straight out of any Darwin Cook, Dave Stewart city skyline. He does this same skyline palette on Tim Sale's stuff. Totally jacked it from him, 100%. It looks great though. It really defines a city. Kind of gives it this like soft glow while also making it dark. And
you had said that like Dave Stewart was like a mentor kind of to you. And
Guy taught me the first initial tricks and sort of techniques and aesthetics and looks that I needed to go. You know, it's not as if I really catch up with him very often anymore. Occasionally we chat, but those first, getting some of these first initial tricks and honestly, some of his work is the reason that I got into coloring in the first place. I was reading a lot of comic books and seeing how people colored stuff, and reading books that he colored and seeing how much better he colored things than like everyone else. And I was just thinking like, man, like how does he make it look so much better than everyone else? And I just started looking at a lot of his stuff. I bought one of the early things that I bought that really got me inspired to color comics was the large compendium volumes for the BPRD and Hellboy. Yeah. Especially honestly, the BPRD ones, even more than Hellboy. The stuff with Guy Davis, all of that work, the way that Dave handles that stuff, it was really inspiring to me because I was able to see how effective colors can be to set a mood, and that you can do it simply. You don't have to spend hours and hours on rendering, sculpting or adding highlights and crazy effects on top of the line art. You just need to throw down some good solid colors underneath the line art that allows the line art to speak for itself.
I wonder if you spent time looking at 4-color process pre-digital stuff with the same kind of eye, and if you have any insights into what works or what doesn't work in a more analog approach.
Yeah, one time I had to do a project for Dark Horse. It was this short thing, and I had to look. My auntie, I got it through my auntie Diana, and she had to kind of run me through what old color was like because they wanted to emulate that style, and so I had to familiarize myself with how that's done, and that was done. Because everything I've ever colored is digital, is in RGB, is with every single color available to me in the spectrum of RGB. I then convert to CMYK, so I'm actually working in CMYK. I even have CMYK toggled on as I work, so it is more limited than the color spectrum of RGB, but it's an insane amount of colors, and that's just something that I've been privileged to always have because I'm not that old.
Right. So let's move on with the story. The thing that we're getting out of this first page is that Grendel is ignorant of the shadow. They give him the lowdown, and then we learn that Argent is, eating pimps in Niagara Falls or whatever, whatever he's doing.
Quick little aside that, Argent's. I mean, because we were wondering, because we were like, he's still around, but he's not in New York.
I'm sure that was just an easy way for my dad to like not have to have Argent.
That's what we were thinking.
Yeah, sure.
Quick little. Because it's like there's no provocation for it that no one is asking, but you might as well.
Yeah. No one's asking because you have plenty when they're facing off against each other. You don't need a werewolf in there too.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, Hunter finds it to be a delightful conundrum. It's like, oh, this is a work perk. There's something. I was thinking a lot about if the shadow wasn't here, would it really be that challenging to take over the 5 families? wouldn't it be like harder to like I don't know, reverse engineer Nikes or or like a personal computer or something like that? No.
That shit doesn't have enough blood in it.
Right.
Yeah. Plenty of money and success to be had, but not enough blood. And Hunter likes all three of those things: the blood, the money, the success. That's what gives him the raging hard on, as you were saying earlier.
Speaking of all those things, when I met you for the first time, Dad was talking to me about like Philip Jose Farmer and A Feast Unknown, which is a book where analogs for Tarzan and Doc Savage are descendants of Jack the Ripper, and they can only get hard when they're covered in gore. And I was like, this is great. And now I have 15 of this guy's books like on my shelf.
I think my dad's told me about that. Never read it.
It's crazy. It's fucking. I haven't read that one. His stuff is really crazy, and it reminds me a lot of this like 1970s pulp evolution tradition that it sounds like was accessible in the 60s and 70s and all that stuff. We were showing off one of Jim Steranko's shadow paperback covers from like mid 70s.
Which one?
The one where there's like a mad scientist, like a girl on a slab, and
yeah, I know it. Yeah. See, when I'm doing the research for this stuff, I'm Googling shadow, reference material. That's the stuff that I'm looking at. Often that's the stuff that my dad is sending me to. Just back when we were doing this, he was sending me tons of this stuff to. I like to get into the whole mindset of the project. I like to know what the artist was looking at when he drew the stuff. It'll help me color it not just better, but easier. It's easier for me to form a palette if I have some preconceived notion in my head of what is being referenced, what is being imitated,
Yeah, for sure, man. You have there's a scene change with a nice shift in palette, place, and time that occurs right here as Grendel leaves wherever the Lentys are. The Dolce Don is not happy, and then we transfer it to Margot, and like the next day Margot's fixing Lamont's broken nose.
Yes, now here's what I had a prepared joke ready. Did he break, because we were talking about Lamont, now did he break Lamont's nose or the Shadow's nose?
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks,
guys.
There you go. That one off.
There's also
that
like there's also like a interesting passage of time thing that happens here with like when he isn't wearing that bandage. We were talking about how long it takes Hunter to write his 1930s book, and so like a little bit of time passes. But I think that, what do we say? He wrote My Little Chickadee in a weekend.
Yeah. So. Well, and it seems like he there is time passing. Like each scene, it's not just like one after another, that there is like days and months even passing. It's cool to see Margot like with the fork, and she's kind of like not playing with it, but she's kind of like exploring it, snicking it out, and she doesn't seem to find the tricorder and the computer workings inside.
The fork very clearly pops out here. I have my knife here instead of swinging out. So there's like motion lines in the first issue that kind of suggests that maybe it's swinging out.
Oh.
Right. So there's got to be a safety on there somewhere. Hey, we're knife buds. There you go.
Nice. Dang. Okay.
Because like she would slice off her fingers at some point if it was swinging. All that stuff.
As they upgrade, Grendel upgrades throughout time, it went from a switchblade to a whatever that blade's called.
That's my fish gutting blade.
Yeah, I figured that. Yeah.
So,
you got some good looking stuff, dude. You fillet the like whole fish, and oh my god, I love that shit.
Yep. I eats them fish.
I went to a sushi restaurant one time and I ordered like the sushi, and they're like, "Do you want the rest of the fish?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And so they just fried the whole entire fish and just served it to me, and I'm like, "Just eat the whole thing." They're like, "Yeah, just all the bones and skin." It was amazing.
It was good. Okay.
It was so good. Once you get that crispy skin, like you say, you fry it with the skin first. Oh.
Speaking of crispy skin, we've got this 2-page sequence where Franny is revealed to. Thank you. Well, it's like we have to go,
Yeah, you got to
the-
segue when you can.
the slavish, we're really, we've had other guests, so we don't make them do the play-by-play, but we thought it would be a special torture for you. So Franny's been beaten up here,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I had fun coloring that because whenever you have someone who's all beaten up like that, in the line art phase, it doesn't translate quite as much. So you really need some bruising up in there, some purples and stuff. And
yeah, are these red crosshatches, are those color holds, or did you add those?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I rarely make marks that fine in the color stage, right? So anytime you see a mark that thin or that fine, it's usually a color hold.
Cool. Awesome. One thing that I noticed in this brownstone is that the shadow in the next page, the shadow is like full on bandana. It's like over the schnoz,
right?
Which I guess that's because like he's like, well, this is a B&E, I can't, There's
it's because of his nose. It's broken.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah!
Thank you.
Damn.
It's because his nose is broken.
He doesn't want
right. If someone sees the broken nose, they could connect it to him.
Lamont.
There you go.
And then he comes in here, and it's like a freaking bloodbath that
no one's gonna see.
The lupinos.
Yeah, and this was really fun to render for me because this was you guys already did the Grendel story. Yeah, you did. Behold the Devil. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't done that yet.
This is the appetizer for Behold the Devil.
Oh, this is the appetizer. Yeah. Okay. Well, in Behold the Devil, there's a sequence where Hunter is in a room, and it looks very similar to this. Just blood everywhere, and there's stuff on the wall and dead guys everywhere. It's same angle as this, which is sort of a 3/4 down thing. I had the opportunity back when I was quite young. I want to say when Pop was doing that one, I was in like high school or even middle school, and I had the opportunity to help him out on that project. And I did a lot of the like gray translations from the black line art to the final grays with the reds, and I got to help out with that one. So rendering this page was really fun because it harkened back to that. But I got to do it in full color.
And that was in Photoshop, the Behold the Devil, or you weren't cutting?
Behold the Devil, the way that
screens?
he did that was he drew them all, and he'll tell you this on that episode, or if you talk to him about it. He drew it all line art, scanned it, sent it into Dark Horse. Then we just printed off on little 8.5 by 11 shitty pieces of paper every single page of the book, and would just gray Prismacolor markers, went through and did all the gray tones, handing that stack then of shitty little 8.5. Somebody in their digital department was able to translate all those gray choices into very simple sort of vector shaped grays.
That's interesting.
Wow, that's super cool.
Wow, there you go.
I don't feel so bad for working on 8.5 by 11 paper now. All right, we're back. We had a little technical difficulty there, the old internet, but we're back. We're back into Grendel the Shadow, and the many deaths in this. You might call it a Lupino noir.
And we've got this scene at Bryant's Park in Manhattan, I think.
Oh, that's what's coming up next. Extra, Morbland Massacre.
That's so funny because when I rendered this, I didn't know that's what that was, and I go by Bryant Park all the time.
Oh yeah, it says 43rd Street and
yeah,
there you go. And then there's another I think there's the scene at Madison Square Park with the Flatiron Building later on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Bryant Park is right by the fly fishing store that I go to all the time.
Oh, there you go.
I told my dad about that, man. He likes fly fishing too, and I was like, "Did you know you can do it in Central Park?" And he's like, "What?"
Yeah,
no way.
Biggest bass I've ever caught and maybe will ever catch was earlier this fall up at Central Park.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Very cool. You can see like on the New York Times thing that this guy's like jacket is kind of covering up that looks like Matt's using like a dead micron or something that's not quite so thick, and that's a technique that gets used a bunch later on. There's like paintings in the background that kind of have that scratchy, or like newspaper headlines.
I think, he uses these Faber-Castell brush pens. And I think what it is it's the small or the extra small edition of those.
It might be the grain on my PDF. When I saw him doing stuff like this, it reminded me of like when Frank Miller would use the duo shade on like the Daily Bugle front pages or whatever it is. Cool,
we got Lamont here with his broken nose and Margot, and they're kind of detailing what's going on. They're like, the Lupinos own blood to paint a giant G, like to paint the scene of what just happened, the Mobland murder.
Yeah, and the point here is that Lamont is frightened, though he's faced, I don't know, Fu Manchu and all these other crazy in-canon shadow villains. This is the deadliest he's ever faced. And meanwhile, Margot is thinking about just getting out, but she knows that Lamont needs her help.
Yeah.
All right.
A nice little subplot.
Standard exposition,
Yeah, sure. Moving right along, yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about, a lot of these pulp characters, Shadow, Doc Savage, Green Llama. They all, like, the template seems to be that they have like this network of people that just like have to do their bidding, whether it's out of a sense of duty or guilt or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
They're afraid of if they don't do it, then they'll meet
they'll be the next ones out.
Stick.
And that's how the relationship with Margot began, right? He saved her or something like that. And
that's right. That's right. Because she was working for it's in year one. She's being like an escort girl, I believe.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, in year one. As my wife just said, a scarlet woman.
Who wears the letter.
Nice. Anyway, so this uncle she never knew has got the money. Yada, yada, yada.
And she's like...
And then next page is a great opening panel that what we call like a half splash or a semi splash. And these are kind of also my favorite thing to do, if not splash pages, then these, because I know right away when I get a page like this, what I'm going to spend the majority of my time coloring immediately. I know. And it's just going to be all those villains,
I didn't even notice the silhouette of the shadow behind Lamont. You see that?
Yeah.
And the cigarette and the gun.
And
the smoke of the cigarette.
Posture.
Yeah.
These villains are great too. They obviously are like, shadow villains, but the hooded guy, the guy with his
they're all
face burned off.
And I can't remember who's who.
It's like the Mandarin in there.
Yeah, he's the obvious one with the finger. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that's in the movie probably too.
Right. Yeah.
Genghis Khan something.
Nice, dude. I really enjoyed this the sequence with the cards in the next scene.
So cool. Yeah.
These are cards that he made. He drew them himself.
He made them. He sharpened the edges of each one, just depending on the luck of the draw, which one he can use as a weapon.
He's a crafty son of a bitch.
Yeah.
He'll make a deck of cards.
He'll make a deck of cards out of super sharp metal just to carry around.
I love the third panel in this sequence where he's like fanning them out and like the perspective on the different cards. It reminds me of that. Remember in We 3 when this is like super obscure. In We 3, Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly, when like the cat like moves through space and it has the effect of like if you're looking down on a Rolodex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy shit.
I love that book.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah.
So Eli, what makes you think that they're made of metal?
Just because 2 pages later he slices the guy's neck open with one.
Nice, just that good.
Does it with a regular card, man.
Just a regular card. That's how badass he is. He's like, oh man, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah,
he's like Bullseye in the Ben Affleck movie.
So what happens? Is this last panel metaphor? Like the images change from the traditional suits to the weapons, or what? I love it, but I was a little confused what I'm supposed to be.
That's the Grendel deck that he just keeps with him. all the kings. Well, I
think you're
right.
I think you're looking too much into it. I think it's just.
I'm looking too much into it. Yeah,
I think it's just supposed to be dramatic.
It is dramatic. Wonderful hand acting.
He has their future cards, and so he swipes it over, and they have those little lenticular.
I don't think it's metaphor. I think he actually like reveals 4 kings that have those images on them, and it's supposed to be dramatic.
Oh, I see. Oh, 4 other. Okay, maybe the thing is I don't know anything about cards, so maybe I'm confused. But what helped with my other confusion was that on this next page it sort of clarified that this is like a meeting of like the commission of the heads of the 5 families.
Right.
And I think Eli and I were a little confused about like historical gangsters versus fictional gangsters and like where the Valentis kind of sat. So like Valente is ahead of one of these families.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's I think it's sort of the mid ground between fact and fiction
right.
here. Like it's a little bit researched, but it's also he's also taking liberties to make up these people.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And then he said, but there's only one ace that trumps them all. He wants them all to still continue their 5 family in and still do the stuff, but he's like, but you all report to me. I am the ace. I am the trump.
Head honcho.
Yes.
We got those tension ripples in the screen printed areas. Again, that's my favorite part. In these close-ups, you can see the mask kind of folding over his face.
Yes.
Super cool.
No, yeah. I like how you shape out the whites in the mask.
It's hard to deal with the mask, the white of the mask, because the way that Pop draws it is like it's all white negative space, like every time within there. And early on when we were talking about, especially covers, a lot of the time it needs to be left like all white because it's supposed to be an icon thing more than like a realism thing when it comes to the color stage.
Got it,
Realistically, a lot of the time the whites would be in shadow and you wouldn't see them very much. Especially if it was like a noir or something. So so even as I'm rendering there, I'm keeping that in mind. I'm never getting them too dark. They're supposed to always be pretty light.
Right. And never obscuring any of the lines either, or like smoothing it into the black.
Yeah.
Word. He continues again with his instructions as we get to the next page. Like, you never question my loyalty, and then the guys are like, the one guy stands up and he's like using a lot of Italian, some of the slang words that we know and love from the films. Vaffangool. And then I love Grendel's little side view here with the card at the ready. It's like, I don't think so, bud. And then that's where it slices the guy's neck wide open with
I love that panel. I thought that panel came out really good with the color holds and just the overall effect of it. It's it looks nice.
Oh man, love it.
The splashy blood.
Splashy blood. Yep.
Yeah. And all Johnny and all the other Valenti guys draw their guns before anybody else can. I felt like without the fork, Grendel must feel a little naked, but.
And they had said that he did that massacre too with like just a single like knife, like a butcher knife or something like that.
I guess he doesn't need his fork in this scene because he's got cards.
Yeah, well, I like to his line too, where he says, "I am in fact not a card sharp, but that is a sharp card. You will find, Don Genovese, I am in fact not a card sharp, but that is a sharp card." I don't know what that means.
That has got to be some old turn of phrase that I don't know of. And,
maybe it's the
card sharp.
The anachronism of card shark. No.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say it sounds like pool shark, but for cards. Yeah.
Cool.
He's a real card sharp, that guy.
Right.
That must be
and that old timey affect, you have to have it.
Yeah.
This Burbank inset on the next page, the circle and like the colors on the
at the board.
Sound effects are really cool.
Yeah, and then I inlaid on the next panel down. I inlaid a map, so that's kind of fun color thing
sweet.
there. I inlaid that map design of Manhattan.
Oh, that's awesome.
I always use this same palette going back to the shadows layer, which was kind of this like olives, sort of olives,
the light from the screens and stuff, kind of.
And olives, but everything tinted by that blue, that neon-y blue.
Yeah, we were looking a little bit at the Death of Margot Lane, and you've got like in the beginning or throughout, there's just like street light scenes, and like all the flesh tones are just like washed away by like fluorescent lighting, and like Burbank here, the skins are all gray and like old timey and all that.
It helps to also transition the scene right away, so we know that we're in like a completely different place, and it's
for sure.
Different vibes there.
And
he
they're
sets
recording
up
on
before the storm, and then we've got this amazing double page spread montage.
God,
you can hear the big band music playing.
Here's a good one. Yep.
Amazing spread of the life of Grendel that's continuing here. There's a little time past. Just amazing work on this.
Yeah, it's a nice spread. I was saying there, it's the kind of spread that I might have turned into a print if I was doing prints of interior pages at the time. Just a really nice spread. And this is also the kind of work that when I get 2 pages like this, I'm really excited about it, because this, for me, is the easiest thing to approach as a colorist. It's a lot easier than if I get 2 pages and each page has, say, 9 or even more panels on it. Often the more panels, the more work for a colorist, for someone like me, but for the way that I color, especially because I'm doing very watercolory sort of blending. And when I get one singular image, one big thing with all these moving parts that all kind of interconnect, it's really easy for me to get my flats back from my flatter and just be off to the races with it. Selecting the background first and laying in watercolors and just getting that moving and going. And because they can all change. I always have my flats layer available underneath everything intact, so I can always just go back to my flats layer and select the background if I need to and just work on the background. But generally I'm pretty minimal on my layers. Like I was saying before, it's just my flats layer, my active color layer for the most part. And I'm just working section by section. And I start with the background, usually midground, and then foreground. And I try and blend it all together. And so these big double page spreads like this are so fun for me to approach. And I think this one turned out pretty sweet.
Yeah, I love this one.
You were saying that like you can hear the band music being played, Eli?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hunter here is Hunter talks here about like his the dramatic irony of knowing the future and how like they can launder money through the steel industry that's kind of ramping up for the military industrial complex. And the lower right hand corner, we got this wonderful like Art Deco New Yorker cover.
Yeah, I love that. It's great.
Yeah, like, so the Grendel life is not the only life that he's developing. He's continuing to develop his Hunter Rose persona back there, in which he writes his amazing novel, and he's at a charity ball, a charity gala.
What's fun about this is it kind of extends the timeline of Hunter Rose too. So like, he was active in his timeline for 4 years or whatever, but then he was also active here for however long it took him to do all this fucking crime and shit. So
it seems like I mean at least 6 months, maybe even a year,
right?
Or more.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dang. So you could there's even other stories you could tell back here. Hunter Rose Noir.
That's
Grendel
the cool
Noir.
thing about Hunter Rose as a blank slate and the Grendel universe. The way that he wrote it through the years is that if you just keep introducing these crazy things, kind of makes the Grendel universe a blank slate. You can have vampires, you can have robots, you can have zombies, you can have whatever, just
and
make
the
it work.
Creativity of the people in the world was also developed as like Grendel could look any way you want, samurai, white on black, black on white, everything. I love that. That's definitely one of the things that makes me be like, I love Grendel. He's at the top of, or the comic is at the top of the heap for me because it's so diverse.
Yeah, we were talking.
You're in frame.
We spent a lot of time talking about when we were doing the anthology stuff, like what are the top 3 stories, like moments that still need, that will hopefully, Brennan, you'll draw one day in 50 years of like Argent falling to the skylight and stuff like that. But like we were talking about, did we talk about this? Like Susan Varigan, like I need a Varigan clan miniseries.
Oh, Susan's great. Yeah.
Like she's an amazing character, and she's always talking about like, well, this is the way that we do things, and like the clan has its own traditions, and love to see him.
Yeah, she's a really great early like indie comics, strong lesbian female that is not typical looking in any way, shape, or form, and so I think for its time period, especially, is pretty avant-garde.
Yeah, Matt was always good about putting forth or doing away with any of these foibles of society, just not even worrying about it.
Have you guys read the whole thing?
Yeah. The whole cycle.
Yeah. And the Rucka book too?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you get a lot of story that's really good stuff there.
Yeah. And we're always like, we'll talk about this stuff, and then we'll be like, yeah, it'll be on the cast in 3 years or something. We'll get there.
Gosh, you guys are really going at this very careful measure.
Issue by issue, episode by episode, man. Yeah, got to.
Speaking of the foibles of society.
Yes.
The book is called Gamora Highway, which is what an incredible Hunter Rose novel title.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, the next page, New York Public Library. Nice. Yes. That's a good one.
Yep.
And the
we know that the basement of that place is pretty haunted from what I've seen.
That panel is one of my favorites in the whole book, color wise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That first one there with the lion outside the New York Public Library, I think it just looks really nice.
And it's almost got the entire palette of the whole book, kind of, except for the reds, like developed over the course of it all. The purples and the yellows and the awesome.
I kind of zoomed in to sort of try to define the colors, like on the columns and the arches, and it's like this like bruised plum purple sepia approach. Like you'll often use colors that are, and we've talked a lot based on Matt's sort of direction about like local color versus tone and mood, and just like looking at these colors in the architecture, it's like, man, like this is just like not what most people would think to lay in there. Well done.
Yeah. And
I usually go with something that is pretty muted, and then I'll pick points of saturation to help draw the eye. So in the case of this spread, that would be the like green of the dress, or the yellows of the warmth, and then the purples there are to be to draw your eye to any shadow, to anything that's supposed to be foregrounded or really like sort of dark and mysterious.
Yeah. So this is Hunter's like charity gala book release, and I guess we've Sophia's there. We got Jerry, the PR guy from the publisher, and maybe
developing the story here.
Yeah, like maybe Mayor LaGuardia. I'm not sure. I think it's a fictionalized Mayor LaGuardia. I'll allow it. Anyway, Sophia loves the book. She thinks it's practically an existential manifesto. Not too bad.
Yeah, she says it's pretty amazing, and he says, "Well, the feeling's mutual." And
they are swooning.
Yeah, they are.
That's
definitely
nice.
And the visions of Joe Costa dancing in his mind all throughout this as they dance to the soothing sounds of Benny Goodman there at the bottom.
Yeah, that's a great sensory inset, and I really loved how like at the bottom of the page, because it's an inset, you kind of get the back of her heel and the gown kind of comes down in the green. Really nice subtle touch there.
Yeah, he does that a lot with these big. Again, this one is also kind of a semi-splash because of the two inset panels there. So you're able to make a moment seem bigger than it is and fit in more stuff. If he had boxed this in, if he had boxed this image of them dancing into a panel in between these two inset panels, it would just truncate the whole moment, you know?
Which is like almost a wide shot that you can imagine, like, seeing everything in this ballroom.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kept it really simple on this one, especially like the background people are pretty flat, but that helps draw your eye to the stuff that you're supposed to look at, which is them dancing. So that's what I rendered more, you know.
Beautiful. And, this is where their relationship is kind of growing. There's like a love thing kind of going on. And again, we're seeing this, I feel like, in order to show that, Hunter Rose is showing a little bit of heart, and this time period is kind of growing on him in a way that maybe he wasn't ready for, in order to establish perhaps a weakness in Grendel that we weren't aware of.
Yeah, that's a big part of his arc. In this. And shall we dance? I thought we already were. Oh, he's eating it up. He loves that.
And then we see Margot and Lamont entering later. And again, Lamont is always grumbling when it's time to Lamont. He'd much rather Shadow. The same as Batman, and seemingly the same as Grendel. Like, their true mask is their human character.
Right. Is their alias. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the lower left, just like they just got there. He's looking at his watch.
Oh yeah, immediately. He's like almost always looking at his watch.
He has no patience for this. Yeah. All right. So this guy Jerry. God,
old
this
friend
is
from
like
college.
I know that his name is Jerry, and so I'm going to Seinfeld instantly. But like this whole moment is very Curb Your Enthusiasm, of just like the way that Hunter loses his temper in public as Hunter. Really, for me, it kind of plays up that he is actually kind of letting that nostalgia kind of weaken his charade,
Yes.
Well, he's uncomfortable here. It's like he says. It's like he says when they get there. I tell you, Margot, I don't have time for such a appery. An appery. I don't even know what the fuck that means. A party, I guess, a gala.
Yeah, that's weird.
And my presence is demanded in the shadows. So, he's not comfortable. Whereas Hunter is fucking, he eats it up.
Oh my God.
I mean, you guys say that. I feel like they're a little different there. Lamont is more uncomfortable wearing his Lamont mask,
right?
Sure.
Than Hunter is. Hunter plays the role pretty well. And I think he even likes it. It's part of the game for him.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The sport.
Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't, it's tailored to his own benefit and pleasure. I like this part where Jerry, Margot's buddy, interrupts Hunter, and then Hunter's not having it. And it's like, so to me, that sort of plays up that like, he is kind of getting lost in this, like, in this moment that, this is another era sort of tailor-made for me and my own domination.
Yeah.
How dare you interrupt my, like, the dream of it all, or whatever it is.
In order to meet some old friends. Who is this Cranston? But then, Grendel knows, because they had that fight where the mask was gone. So he knows exactly who he is. There's no guessing. There's no, you seem familiar. He knows. How's your nose, buddy?
Yeah. I mean, this scene in Batman Grendel is like the same panel. It's like we get to kind of reflect off of it.
Yeah. You got to have the meat in their everyman.
Yeah. They're meat cute. Yeah.
They're meat cute. My wife just taught me that term the other day. I never heard meat cute in my life, but
I got it from Kelly in The Office.
This is like a meat snark.
Yeah.
And I just noticed Jerry tugging at his collar, like, oh well, if I got out of that one because Hunter knows that this Cranston guy's the richest dude in the city, so.
Yeah, I think we have met, and I wouldn't say there's a shadow of a doubt.
Oh,
bam, bam, bam. The shadow will return in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And now a word from the toothpaste sponsor. Yeah, and so they're both kind of like a little like their ladies are like, let's continue our enjoyable night instead of kibitzing with you.
This the middle, I think it's the middle tier, the silhouette tier. We talk a lot about these like kind of wide shot Wagner silhouettes, and here's a real nice one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right out of Batman Grendel too, right out of a lot of Matt's work, but love it. And okay, actually here too, Brennan, like this is beautiful work. This is the Rothko inspired squares here. You know, this is the really artistic.
I did that a bunch on those silhouetted ones. Yeah, just throwing big squares of shapes of color because it just, I don't know, it's something.
well, also it kind of like tells us who's who, and then it kind of accentuates the like hot and cold feelings of it all.
Right, exactly. So you can just use the Rothko squares to your advantage, tonality, mood wise, to set that right away.
Absolutely, it's great.
This sends, obviously Lamont can't enjoy the Ben Granoff band that's playing in the background. He can only think about his next move using the suction cup climbers to visit the Dolce Dawn.
That is your initial.
I love that panel, by the way. That's got to be one of my favorites from the book. It's sweet.
the Prismacolor cast shadow is super cool.
Yeah, of him climbing up. Yeah, it's great.
I'm a
sucker for the suckers.
Yeah.
I am.
Do you think that these are the kind that you have to twist something to get them to lock in, or they just kind of yank it off?
Oh, he's yanking. In my mind, it sounds ridiculous, like so obvious, and everyone around could probably hear it, and it'd be really obnoxious. But
your treatment of the holding line on the lattice of the window here, like the inner brown of the wood, is really really cool on the inset.
And I love the bubble behind the window.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bubble on the inside too is great.
Oh yeah, getting cut off. We saw this. This is also in at the club in Gotham in Batman Grendel, when Hunter is on the ledge.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
on the Wayne Corps guys. Yeah, trying to do their security, and Lamont's he's gonna get in. I really like the vase on the inside. You see the vase.
I think that page is sweet too because it has no words on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
and
the visual moments.
The creep, the immense creepability of the shadow here, just in all black and the white eyes too. We saw that last ish, like just creepy, and your red background too. It's like, blood is about to be shed, some fear is about to be had, and he comes in and he's like, "You son of a bitch, you're making an old man sleep," and then he's like, "Lorenzo Valenti."
Yeah, red's the color to like use most obviously, so it's hard to with that one too, the reserve tan. You really got to know when to use it and not, because it'd be really easy to just have it all the time, all over the place.
Well, I think
I probably overused it as well, honestly.
I think the power of the pure white in his eyes in the silhouette one kind of helps not make the red, be
so
overused. Yeah, overpowering. Yeah.
Super cool.
Then on the next page with the ring though too, we're seeing his reflection in the ring. He's like under the spell of the shadow, and he's like, "You bastardo."
These like warped distortions, they kind of reminded me of like Sam Keith's Sandman.
Yeah, sure. I was just gonna say that's my favorite thing on this spread is the way that those are rendered out and then the way that I colored them. But I love the way my dad draws this stuff when there's stuff reflected. He uses sort of scratchier line work to get it across. And if you just KO that line work, it reads so well. It reads so well as existing in that universe, but being kind of like removed in a way.
The cross cutting here of the ring, the camera on the ring doesn't move, but it gets closer and closer and closer on Lamont, and then pulls out, and you can see both the ring and his silhouette. Really, really clever stuff.
Yes, and then he leaves him asleep in a bath of Prismacolor as he laughs his way out.
Bath of Prismacolor. That is exactly what that looks like.
Like at first, when I was hearing the laugh, I was hearing like the radio show laugh because I've listened to a bunch of those. But for some reason this week I was hearing like the laugh from Thriller, from like the end of Thriller, like you know, like it's instead of the shadow laugh. But and then
what I like about this interrogation scene is that like when he gets the most distressed in this last close up, where he's talking about Sophia and how he knows that Grendel is looking at her through the mask, and that's where he gets the most distress.
Yeah.
And so the tension, you know, the arc of the closeness and the tension between Valente and his daughter is one of the most interesting parts of the story engine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, you know, we see that she doesn't feel the same way eventually, but because, you know, that this hardened criminal dude, he does have his soft spot. His soft underbelly is his soft underbelly. And we see this hero retiring to his taxi cab again with Peter Boyle at the wheel, ready to steer him away.
I think this is Mo. Does he call this guy Mo somewhere? Or am I?
Yeah, he said, "The Sanctum Mo. Take care, we're not followed." And guess what? You're followed, babe.
Yeah.
By the hunter himself, as he jumps into the mist, and we pick back up.
Now, this is the scene, I guess, facing south at Madison Square Park.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't quite caught up there. That last page with the where he leaps and
yeah,
he is being followed. That page. There's something that I really like about the way the windows came out on this, such a specific detail, but the way the windows look on that top panel with the taxi, when you have like deco lines like that and like a reflected window or something, you just drop them out. It just looks so pleasing to me.
Yeah, and it's like really the entire city like reflected there. It's awesome. Where to, boss?
Oh, I see. I was looking at the inside of the car. This is just above the taxi, the exterior shot.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks great.
You're talking about those like deco lines, and then if you like drop them out, a color.
Yeah, it's like very Fritz Lang.
Yeah. Oh, and then right here in the next page is Times Square. I'm very close to this spot. Here.
Yeah, man.
It's Times Square? No.
I think it's Bryant. It's Bryant Park.
Because the Flatiron.
No, it's Madison Square Park. Excuse me. It's like 23rd Street.
The Globe Theater.
Very cool. So this is Johnny and Sophia. What's this one? Oh, he's got to tell her about Franny. Oh my God.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's tough. And
so the boyfriend is supposed to be like a soldier in the family.
That's right. Yeah. And he's just beating her friend up, and he beat her to a pulp, which is like gonna set a rash of things, a domino effect of events in motion here.
Yeah, I really enjoy. I know I'm moving quickly, but on the this one where Johnny tells her that she's dead, the sincerity in Johnny's acting is really nice, and you know it's sort of foreshadowing the truth of their shit.
Right. Yeah, but she keeps telling him to shut up. It's like, yeah, we're not really gonna see the idea of what is proven later at all. Like there's almost no sign given at all that there's any ulterior motives between these two.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the sensitivity that he's displaying in having to break this news to her, and she's not used to. She enjoys a level of control that most people don't.
Right. Yeah. And
what we're seeing is that they actually have like a sensitive relationship. We're getting a window into that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a little bit more about them too, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get back to the Shadow's lair where he's writing a letter in disappearing ink, which is made of urine, probably. That's what they do for those kind of things.
It's probably he makes all his own stuff, you know.
That's true. You mix a little urine with ink, and it then you hold it up to fire later or something, and it shows up. Another lesson learned from The Office.
Eli, you've been busy during quarantine.
I have been. I try a lot of different urine based.
Yeah. One must stay active. You know, I got fly fishing, and you got
You're in luck because I do have a lot of so yeah, he's basically saying that like there's a new assignment. Sophia Valenti's got some stuff. Every 2 days, please report back via visual methods and context. So the shadow is putting the word out to his people, and Grendel has followed him. And this is the hallway to the office that is like the like he hides underneath this office building. That's where the shadow cave is.
Yeah.
Under B. Jonas.
His hunting methods are kind of revealed here in his captions.
B. Jonas is one of his many aliases too. So he's just got so many aliases. He's one of those unlike Bruce Wayne or something. He's not just Lamont Cranston. That's sort of what we know him as nowadays, but he's Kent Allard and all these other aliases as well.
Right.
Your reflection on the glass is really nice, the way it plays with the Prismacolor.
Yeah, thank you. That's what. Yeah, I was just trying to emulate that, but like lighter and on the glass. Yeah,
really, really cool stuff.
Yep. And Grendel's peering in through the mail slot. He picks the lock, and he has his nice, what do you think that is? The red. He's got one of those infrared.
Like he invented an infrared thing. I like when he's talking about all these details that he picks up. It sort of plays into the genetic mutation of his unbelievable brilliance, where he's talking about like disruptions in dust patterns and what did Matt call him, an uber creature? He and Argent are uber creatures, so it's like stuff that like he's like touched in a good way.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's like hyperhuman.
Yeah, hyperhuman. I like that.
And so he's creep. Oh my god.
Oh, what a cute kitty! Look at that little guy.
Raja, what do you have? He's right in the mic, dude.
All right, so he comes on down.
Yeah, he's creeping in there, and he's like using his infrared and all his like uber sensory perception. He's silently creeping down, and it's surprising to me that the shadow doesn't have cameras or something. But I guess there really isn't like
there's no cameras.
Closed circuit. There's no TV. There's no nothing. Yeah, so yeah, he's got nothing. No tripwires.
Yeah, he's busy. Every borough needs to be accounted for by one of his
and he
guys, and the fork is just out there as a trophy to contemplate. Like, how am I going to get this guy?
Well, the Shadow has his own podcast.
Yeah, that was always on his mind.
That's right. He's keeping it there, and so Grendel just comes right in and flips it away, and oh man, he lunges right as the Shadow is telling his podcast listeners the crime boss's code name is Grendel.
Nice.
Yeah, killer spread there to round out the issue. Bum bum bum. Yes. Awesome. What a good issue, dude.
Good stuff, yeah.
And again, just leaving the final chapter wide open, like another mid fray, just like about to start. Yes.
This was my first, well, no, this is the second issue, obviously, but this series was the first time I'd done anything published monthly that was longer than 22 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to do one of these a month.
Oh, damn.
And it was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you probably see a lot of like simplified stuff here, areas I left flat that maybe I wouldn't have if I had more time. But
it works, man.
I think that sometimes when you rush like that, you also make great choices. You unlock little things that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise because you're pressed on time, and so you come up with fun little things.
Yeah, and sometimes simpler is like better, you know. Sometimes just like leaving that little, like it all works. To me.
Like for example, early on there, when we were talking about the fight sequence in the first like 10, 12 pages or so, there's that moment where the Shadow cracks Grendel over the face there, and the color is just, like I said, that really simple thing, and that's something I probably wouldn't have done if I was just over-rendering everything and taking my filthy time with each and every background and panel and stuff. Early on,
it turned out really cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Early on when I started coloring, Dave Stewart, he told me to, when I'm coloring, pick one panel per page that you spend the most time on, and then pick one thing in each panel that you spend the most time on. This way you're never bogged down on other stuff, and you're really focused on selling the one thing, moving on.
And is that thing usually the focal point or not always?
Right. No, exactly. The one thing that I'm
focal.
referring to is the focal point. So that one thing. So in the case of that panel, it's like what matters. Boom, that. So just sell that really quick. Boom. Don't spend too much time on the background or knocking out KOing lines or whatever. Just boom.
Boom. The action.
The action.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. I think also like the limited the limited palette, or like the choices that you made to simplify, also kind of help sell the time period that the story is taking place in a lot of ways, because it's like this like sepia moody,
right?
It's noir, but it's in color,
Yeah,
the dirty and the gritty.
And like I said earlier, I'm often going for a pretty desaturated, earthy tones, and then just picking the occasional point of interest that is saturated. Pick that thing, that one thing, the focal point, Yeah.
And do it up. Well, awesome. Brendan, you're going to join us for the next episode as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we are going to say goodbye for this week. Until next week, we are going to get into the Shadow, Grendel-Verse Shadow Part 3, featuring Brennan Wagner. Vivat Grendel. Keep on Grendelin. Until next week.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
You could even call this scene a Lupino Noir. Everybody's frozen but me. Is it because my joke was so bad?